So MAGA is now put in the unfortunate position of having to choose the principles that they claim they had or Donald Trump himself. Take a wild guess which direction they're going to go. So this segment here, which I'm about to break down for you, is wild because there are no ifs, ands, or buts about it. MAGA is bending the knee, genuflecting at the altar of Trump, and going full warmonger like the little loser beta cucks they are. So let's start with this one here. This is Charlie Kirk. So here's what he said before Trump launched war against Iran. It's going unnoticed because so much other news is happening, but the war drums are beating again in D.C. The warmongers worry that this is their last chance to get the white whale they've been chasing for 30 years, an all-out regime change war against Iran. A new Middle East war would be a catastrophic mistake. Our military stockpiles are depleted from 3 years of backing Ukraine. Our effort to reshore manufacturing has only just begun and will take years to bear fruit. War would worsen our already immense deficit and national debt. Iran is larger than Iraq, Syria, and Afghanistan combined. A war would not be easy and could easily become a calamity. Then afterwards, with the weight of the world on his shoulders, President Trump acted for the betterment of humanity. For the next few hours, spare us the armchair quarterbacking and instead trust our commander-in-chief. So before, bro, regime change war would be a catastrophe, it'd be so wrong, bro. Trump launches exactly that. Bro, well done. Masterful gambit, sir. You had the weight of the world on your shoulders. And nobody criticize him. Nobody criticize him. Don't armchair quarterback, bro. Trust our commander-in-chief. Oh, we are just getting started, y'all. Iran gave President Trump no choice. For a decade, he has been adamant that Iran will never get a nuclear weapon. Iran decided to forego diplomacy in pursuit of a bomb. That's a lie, by the way. This is a surgical strike, operated perfectly. President Trump acted with prudence and decisiveness. This is embarrassing. By the way, that talking point of Trump has always been clear Iran cannot get a nuclear weapon. This is a talking point that was literally drafted by the Trump regime and by AIPAC and sent out to their little stormtroopers. And they say, use this argument to defend his illegal and offensive war against Iran, a country that didn't attack us. There are marching orders from the top down, from AIPAC and from the Trump regime. Here's how you defend his illegal and offensive war. Here's before Trump starts a war with Iran. This is insane. Regime change will result in a bloody civil war, killing hundreds of thousands and creating another massive Muslim refugee crisis. Toppling a leader is never as easy as you think. It almost always results in further involvement, a civil war, and chaos. Resist this! After? A bottom-up revolution. This is after Trump came out and said, regime change, I like regime change, let's do regime change in Iran. Charlie Kirk says, a bottom-up revolution rises from the will of the people. A top-down regime change is engineered by elites and the intel community. One is organic, the other is orchestrated, forced. The line is very thin and must proceed extremely carefully. Before you know it, we could be in a situation like Libya. President Trump is talking about an organic uprising. America cannot get involved in a forceful decapitation effort in Persia. Oh my God, bro. Trump literally comes out and says, I love regime change. Regime change is great. We should do regime change in Iran. Make Iran great again. And here's Charlie Kirk like, what he's trying to say is regime change is bad if it's top down, but good if it's bottom up. And Trump is saying do it bottom up. How is it bottom up if he just attacked their 3 top nuclear facilities, you fucking fraud? That's not bottom up. What are you talking about? Oh my God, this is so humiliating. Understand, man, this is how his bread is buttered. He is a regime puppet. That's what he is. He got his start in Republican Party politics. And he's going to stay in Republican Party politics. He's funded by right-wing think tanks and billionaires. He started the TPUSA group, which is an attempt to make young people more conservative, more Republican, more MAGA. The idea that I'm going to stand on principle and ruin my entire career and actually go in the other direction now and crusade against the guy who literally gives him phone calls and pats him on the head, right? Trump literally has been in contact with a lot of these right-wing influencers, trying to keep them in the loop and trying to get them to defend him. He's doing it with sloppy Steve Bannon. He's doing it with Charlie Kirk. This has been reported. These guys are not going to burn their bridge. They are hacks. They are losers. They are charlatans. Look how quickly they flipped on a fucking dime, even when it was a principle that they said they had at their core. Gone out the window. Principles, my ass cheeks. All right, I'm still not done. Let's go to Laura Loomer. This was back January 29th, 2024. Today, Nikki Haley went on CNBC and called for the U.S. to bomb Iran. Nikki Haley wants more war in the Middle East, which means more dead U.S. soldiers. The only person who has proven that he won't create more wars is Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the pro-peace candidate. Fast forward to today. Breaking. President Trump confirms the U.S. just bombed all 3 nuclear sites in Iran. He said all U.S. planes are now on their way home. Thank you, President Trump. Tee-hee-hee. Now I love war because Trump did it. Tee-hee-hee. I really hope there are some people who were in MAGA who are watching this segment. Because if you have a single honest bone in your body, not only should you be done with these motherfuckers, you should dedicate your time to crusading against them and exposing them. No more holding people's hands and singing Kumbaya. So, I could kind of see it from your perspective. No, it's time to fucking crusade. Look at how clearly absurd this is. How clearly contradictory and hypocritical. Look how... I'm trying to hold back. I don't want to get banned on YouTube, which I'm very close to doing if I say what I want to say. But you get the point. This is unacceptable. All these people are fucking unacceptable. Total hacks. They're not honest actors. Here's one of the big MAGA Twitter accounts, MAGA Voice. Trump will end all of these nonsense wars, he said on November 11th, 2024. Now, breaking. President Trump used multiple B-2 stealth bombers to strike Iran's nuclear sites. Trump had this all master planned out. I stand with Trump. I don't even need to add commentary at this point, bro. Just enjoy. Just enjoy as we go through this. Another big MAGA account. Seeing all these panicans thinking Trump is going to push us into a war with Iran is so fucking laughable. Then, when Trump does bring us into a war with Iran and he announces it on his Twitter account, this person says, fuck around and find out. Supporting it. Gunther Eagleman, another big right-wing Twitter account. Justin, President Trump's administration tells allies it will not get involved in war against Iran unless Iran attacks Americans. Good, not our war. Now, after he attacks Iran, I stand with Trump. I trust Trump. He made the right call. How many of these people are literally directly on the payroll? That's what we need to find out. How many of them are getting paid by AIPAC? How many of them are getting paid by the Trump regime? How many of them are directly on the payroll? DC Drano says, Trump didn't declare war. He dropped some bombs, then called for peace. Could you imagine Russia or China or Iran launching an attack on our major nuclear facilities and then afterwards going, bro, we need peace. Why don't you guys want to agree to peace, bro? You can't do an act of war and then say, but peace, right? We could have peace, right? You shouldn't have done the act of war if you wanted peace. It's like that sign that says, fighting war for peace is like fucking for virginity. It is a contradiction in terms. This is like beyond Orwellian, what we're talking about here. We need a new word that's stronger than just Orwellian. More, Juanita Broderick, big Trump sycophant. This is not our war. This is not our war. She said on June 15th, 2025, not that long ago. Now she says, no other country in the world could have carried out what occurred tonight. Only the U.S. military has this kind of weaponry. Oh my God. More, here's the absolute cuck, bitch, prick, MAGA loser that CNN invites on to lie to their audience repeatedly. Jennings, here's what he says.
This is not an escalation. This is a de-escalation.
Trump promised us.
He's talking about the bombing their 3 major nuclear sites. This is not escalation. It's a de-escalation when I bomb their 3 major nuclear sites. Just like if Iran bombed 3 of our major nuclear sites, we would say, oh, clearly they're de-escalating and they're ready for peace. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Forth and war moving forward.
This is not an escalation. This is a de-escalation.
Well, Trump promised escalation.
This is not
Trump promised escalation.
Ever
Iranian
bunker busting bombs is not an escalation.
Because she said President Trump promised us peace. I ask you, can we have peace if Iran has a nuclear weapon?
Yes, absolutely. They're literally not building one. Point number 1. They're not building one. That's a fact. That's a fact. Second of all, yes, even if they were, we could have peace with them. In fact, we'd be more likely to have peace with them because in that scenario, Israel and the U.S. can't fuck with them. In the same way, why haven't we overthrown North Korea yet? Because they have the fucking nuke, and that serves as a deterrent. These idiots never once in their life have thought about this from the other perspective. They've never done it. They're American exceptionalist / American supremacist fucking idiots who've never done the most basic elementary the most basic elementary intellectual exercise of trying to see it from the other perspective. They've never done it. Never. And if they did, I'm not sure they're intelligent enough. Even if they did that intellectual exercise, I'm not sure they're intelligent enough to realize, oh, wait, my position was wrong.
We had a deal, and
you're litigating the past.
I'm not.
She said we had a deal because under Barack Obama, everything was going perfect because we had a nuclear deal with them, and the IAEA was going into Iran and regulating their nuclear program, and they were only enriching to about 3 or 4%, which is for their power grid and for scientific research. And all we had to do in return was lift our sanctions on them and give them back their own money that we had stolen. That's it. The deal was working. Trump ripped it up for no fucking reason other than he's a fucking warmonger idiot.
Litigating the past.
We have peace if they have a nuclear weapon.
We had a deal. He's trying to get back into that deal. And he withdrew from that.
They were violating
and not only that, now he's trying to have another deal.
Bribery and a peace.
Wall to wall, frothing at the mouth, warmongering bullshit among MAGA, their media accounts, their politicians. If you turn on Fox News, holy shit. These people have boners for World War II. I would say large boners, but we know that the people on Fox News and watching Fox News are incapable of large boners, but you get the point. All right, more. Here's Matt Gaetz. He's another one who really branded himself as, I'm an anti-war populist right-winger. Yeah, and by the way, he's got a show on one of the shitty side right-wing networks, either Newsmax or One American News. And on that show, I'm against this war. I don't agree with this war. As soon as Trump starts the war, illegally attacks their nuclear sites, here's what he says. President Trump basically wants this to be like the Soleimani strike. One and done. No regime change war. Trump the peacemaker! Guys, I kid you not. Within a literal day of Matt Gaetz saying this, Trump comes out and tweets that he wants regime change in Iran. The goalposts will keep moving. I guarantee you that's how this game is played. They are not honest actors. When they're not honest actors and they're liars, they have no shame. The goalposts will keep moving. Sloppy Steve Bannon already moved the goalposts, and he said, well, ultimately, if he ends up doing it, then he's got some intelligence we don't have, and we'll support Trump. We'll fall in line. That's why Tucker called Trump to fucking apologize when he spoke out against the war. This is how he's getting bad advice from the neocons around him. And actually, this is defensive. This isn't offensive. And actually, we can't allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon. It's all happening right now. We don't need to speculate. It's all already happening right now. The goalposts are already moving. Here's Tomato Lorenzo. She says, to all of the influencers decrying the strikes on Iran and forecasting an endless war, why don't you just take a beat and give our president a chance to prove you wrong? It's a mistake to underestimate his resolve. He does not want endless war at all. Or war at all. He is not interested in nation building in the Middle East. He saw the problem others have either been bitching about or creating for 30 years, and he acted. Trust Trump. He rarely, if ever, is wrong. What a shocking thing to say. And then they whine and bitch and moan when we say, you guys are in a cult. Let me repeat that. Trust Trump. He is rarely, if ever, wrong. How is that not a cult? When he does the thing that you guys said he would never fucking do, and now you're defending it, that is like the definition of a cult. All right, here's Cernovich, another one of these anti-war populist right-wingers. So Thomas Massie, to his credit, Thomas Massie is a libertarian, and he's an actual principled libertarian. And principled libertarians will be a thorn in the side of the Republican Party from time to time, like Ron Paul was, for example, like Dave Smith is now, and like Thomas Massie is. He's the one truly principled libertarian on the right who's actually standing up against this. So Trump illegally attacks Iran. Thomas Massie comes out immediately and says, this is not constitutional. In other words, hey, asshole, you have to get approval from Congress before you launch a fucking war. Duh. So here's Cernovich, who has been claiming he's anti-war this whole time. He chimes in, yes, it is constitutional. Cut the crap. You act like an engagement farmer. It's possible to question the prudence of the strike without making shit up. George Washington sent troops to shut down a rebellion, for fuck's sake. Tonight's actions aren't even close to exceeding his powers. So the anti-war Mike Cernovich is mangling our laws and our Constitution to pretend like actually Trump's attack was perfectly legal, even though it obviously isn't, because only Congress can declare war. Shocking, really. Shocking. So a story leaked immediately after Trump did the attack, where they reported that J.D. Vance was actually against it behind the scenes, and he was saying, you're trying to drag us into your war, Israel. And of course, all the MAGA idiots sort of ate that up like, see, J.D. Vance is a truly principled guy. Ready? As Michael Tracy points out, according to Israeli media, these leaks published yesterday afternoon about J.D. Vance supposedly pushing back against direct U.S. involvement in the war were yet another facet of the sweeping deception campaign to confuse and misdirect, and plenty of dopes credulously fell for it. In other words, the point of that report was to try to sanitize J.D. Vance's image so that if/when this war goes horribly, he has clean hands and they say, oh, well, he was actually against it the entire time. But it's all a lie. Just like Trump's negotiations with Iran were a lie. Just like his fake ceasefire with with Gaza was a lie. They lied every step of the way. That's how they killed Qasem Soleimani. They said, let's go do some diplomacy. Meet us over here in this place. And then when Soleimani went there, they murdered him. They fake diplomacy when the goal all along is fucking regime change. And yes, J.D. Vance is a part of it. Here's J.D. Vance on TV after the illegal and offensive war launched by Donald Trump. And here's what he says. Hey, don't worry. I know sometimes on the campaign trail we talked about being anti-war, but this is different, bro. I swear. I pinky swear. Here we go.
And the second thing is, Kristen, I certainly empathize with Americans who are exhausted after 25 years of foreign entanglements in the Middle East. I understand the concern, but the difference is that back then we had dumb presidents, and now we have a president who actually knows how to accomplish America's national security objectives.
Look, I know that we said we were against regime change wars. I know. He literally wrote like a op-ed about this, I think in the Wall Street Journal, where he's like, Trump's foreign policy is great. No new wars. And now he's like, bro, look, did we launch a little warski? Maybe we did launch a little warski, but it's okay because other presidents were dumb and Trump is smart. Oh, okay. Let me throw out all of the principles I claim to have and let me say, sure, death and destruction. Sign me up. These people are disgusting. From J.D. Vance on Meet the Press, quote, no, Kristen, we're not at war with Iran. We're at war with Iran's nuclear program. Could you imagine Iran or Russia or China attacks all of our nuclear programs in this country? And then they have the nerve to say, bro, we're not at war with America. We're just at war with their nuclear program. This doesn't count as a war. Would we see it that way? Oh shit, all of our nuclear infrastructure was attacked? That's all right. They're not against us. They're just against our nuclear program. It's not the same thing. It's not a war. We hold other countries that are our enemies to the highest, most absurd, ridiculous standard. And when it comes to us, fucking anything goes, y'all. Anything goes. All right, you ready for this? This gets darker. I know it's already dark. This gets darker. So I told you, this is coordinated. MAGA is a fucking psyop, y'all. They are totally controlled by AIPAC, number one, and by the Trump regime itself. So literal direct talking points were dispersed. And look at this. All these MAGA accounts, look at what they're saying. All. NPC style. Ready? If you're no longer MAGA because Trump wiped out Iran's nuclear sites, you were never MAGA to begin with. If you are upset that Trump took out Obama's nuclear facilities in Iran, you were never MAGA. If you're no longer MAGA because Trump wiped out Iran's nuclear sites, you were never MAGA in the first place. I may be upset at a lot of people with this, but if you're no longer MAGA because Trump wiped out Iran's nuclear sites, you were never MAGA to begin with. If you're no longer MAGA because President Trump wiped out Iran's nuclear sites, you were never MAGA to begin with. Nearly identical talking points, some of them literally identical, all at the same time, all from the MAGA influencers. And you're telling me this is not a controlled movement? You're telling me this is not a cult? That is exactly what it is. Is this what you want to be affiliated with? All right, so now some polls. You could say, well, I mean, okay, the MAGA influencers are all falling in line, bro. The MAGA media people, the politicians, we'll get to the politicians in a second. But, I mean, the voters aren't, right? All right, ready for this? YouGov poll. The percentage who approve or disapprove of the U.S. bombing Iranian nuclear sites. Ready? So only 16% of Democrats support bombing Iran's nuclear sites. Only 16%. Okay? Republicans? Only 13% oppose bombing Iran's nuclear sites. So as soon as Trump went full warmonger, as soon as he started an illegal and offensive war, now only 13% of Republicans in this YouGov poll say, I'm against it. I mean, you already know. It depends how you phrase the question. If you say, should the U.S. go to war with Iran? Then literally only 5% of the country supports it. But this is the power of the cult, and this is the power of media propaganda. And when you say, Iran's getting a nuke, should they have the ability to get a nuke? Should we stop them from getting a nuke? When you phrase it like that, all of a sudden, only 13% of Republicans are against war with Iran. Nearly 70% are for it. It's not just the politicians. It's not just the media figures. Yes, it is MAGA. It is the voters. It is the cult. So as you all know, there's been an attempt in the Senate, an attempt in the House, actually multiple attempts to try to get a war powers resolution through to effectively block war with Iran. You ready for this? At least 60 members of Congress have now signed on to efforts against the Trump-Vance administration's war on Iran. Here's the count. 59 Democrats are trying to block the war, and 1 Republican is trying to block the war. Thomas Massie. Even Chuck Schumer came out and announced support for the War Powers Act and is urging all senators to vote for it. So in other words, Democrats are now whipping everybody and saying, yeah, let's vote against Trump's war with Iran. But in this bill in the House, 60 members of Congress have signed on to block war with Iran, 59 Democrats and 1 Republican. Now, let's get to, you ready for this? Let's get to the best right-wing voices we could find on it. And to be fair, Thomas Massie, of course, he's been doing a great job, right? Media figures like Dave Smith, these are libertarians, and they're genuinely and sincerely different, right? They're not the same as just a MAGA cultist. But let's go to big MAGA superstar Marjorie Taylor Greene. Here's what she said. Ready? My thoughts on bombing Iran. I don't know anyone in America who has been the victim of a crime or killed by Iran, but I know many people who have been victims of crime committed by criminal illegal aliens or murdered by cartel and Chinese fentanyl drugs. Almost everyone in our country can relate to this fact. However, America has not dropped bunker busters on the cartel's sophisticated drug tunnels. Wait, so the argument is you should be doing war with Mexico, going after the cartels, and you should be going after criminal illegal aliens more, but not Iran. Okay. So I already hate the dodge because it's like, why are you doing war here? You should do war with Mexico. Launched Tomahawks on massive cartel poisonous drug operations or gone to war against the cartel international terrorist networks. Neocon warmongers beat their drums of war and act like Billy Badass going to war in countries most Americans have never seen and can't find on a map, but never find the courage to go to war against the actual terrorists who actually do kill Americans, invade our land, and make billions doing it day after day, year after year. I'm 51 years old. I'm Gen X. I've watched our country go to war in foreign lands for foreign causes on behalf of foreign interest for as long as I can remember. I was in 10th grade when Desert Storm started, and my father before me was sent to Vietnam, another senseless foreign war. America is $37 trillion in debt, and all of these foreign wars have cost Americans trillions and trillions of dollars that never benefited any American. American troops have been killed and forever torn apart physically and mentally for regime change, foreign wars, and for military industrial base profits. I'm sick of it. I can easily say I support nuclear-armed Israel's right to defend themselves, and also say at the same time I don't want to fight or fund nuclear-armed Israel's wars, nor any other country for that matter. I'm sick of funding foreign aid in foreign countries and foreign everything. I want to fund American interests and issues, except she supports the bill to cut Medicaid, so you don't really want to fund American stuff. Okay, let's continue. I want great trade deals so American businesses and people can afford goods and be successful. I want low inflation and low interest rates. I want American construction, housing, and manufacturing to boom, even though you supported the guy who just outsourced over 300,000 American jobs. I want Americans to be rich and have security in their future. I want my children's generation to have a great future. My kids are 22, 25, and 27. It pisses me off beyond comprehension that my children's generation can't afford to buy a house, can't afford insurance, and have little hopes for their future. Americans are exhausted by all of this, and rightfully so. I can also support President Trump and his great administration on many of the great things they are doing while disagreeing on bombing Iran and getting involved in a hot war that Israel started. That's not disloyalty. Critical thinking and having my own opinions is the most American thing ever. Because contrary to what brainwashed Democrat boomers say, Trump is not a king, MAGA is not a cult. Agree to disagree. And President Trump has surrounded himself with people who once disagreed with him and even ran against him for, oh, here we go. It's not actually Trump's fault, it's the people around him. Also, the same Democrats in Congress that are all of a sudden clutching their pearls about Trump bombing Iran fully supported and voted to fund dementia-ridden Biden's proxy war against Russia and Ukraine and stood by Biden's disastrous withdrawal. So at the same time, you're pretending to be anti-war. You're implying Biden should have never pulled out of Afghanistan, bro. And also, shut the fuck up about Russia and Ukraine. Who started that war, bitch? Who started that war? Okay? Russia gets the blame. Hypocrites is all they are, and they are just desperately trying to find solid ground to oppose Trump on because so far they failed at grasping anything yet. I love how she's spending more time attacking Democrats while saying, I kind of disagree with Trump going to war with Iran. By the way, she also exploded at AOC because AOC said Trump should be impeached over this. Why are you getting mad? If you're against war with Iran, and you think Israel started this whole thing as they did, shouldn't you be signing on to impeachment of Trump? What are you doing? Now what has been done is done, and Americans now fear Iranian terrorist attacks on our own soil. That's bullshit. It would be a false flag. And being dragged into another war by Netanyahu when we weren't even thinking about any of this a week ago. We don't know what the future holds, and I pray for the safety of all people and an end to the constant demand for America to go to war. Enough is enough. Okay, so all of that, right? And like I told you, at least as of right now, she hasn't signed on to the bill. Only Thomas Massie has signed on to the bill to block the war. And like I said, she yelled at AOC for saying Trump should be impeached for doing something flagrantly unconstitutional and going to war without even getting it approved by Congress. This is one of the better voices on this specific issue, and even she didn't sign on to the fucking bill, attacks Democrats more, and makes excuses for Trump and say the people around him are the ones. This is the problem, y'all. This is the problem. I got one more for you. So here's Alex Jones. Here's what he says about this. Ready?
It's Monday, June 23rd, 2025. It's one of the most important video posts I've ever made. We're now in day 11 of the Israeli strikes on Iran and their counterstrikes. We are now going into the third day of the United States launching its attacks last Saturday that I predicted to the day. Here's the bottom line. President Trump said he did not want war, but he said he would never let Iran get a nuclear weapon. He said it was not about regime change, and in his speech Saturday evening, he said that he wanted peace. Then last night on Truth Social, he says, make Iran great again, that regime change is a good thing.
By the way, isn't that enough? Isn't that drop the mic, game, set, match, we're done here? Well, he said back then he doesn't want regime change. Now he's saying he wants regime change. Shouldn't that make you be like, okay, fuck this guy and the horse he rode in on. I'm going to fucking crusade against him.
That is designed to push the mullahs to close the Strait of Hormuz and attack U.S. bases.
By the way, I should point out that literally like 3 days ago, Alex Jones was saying, Iran already got the nuke, y'all. Iran already got the nuke. There's not going to be a war because Iran already got the nuke. And then when Israel attacked Iran, and when the U.S. attacked Iran, and Iran fired back, he does this emergency segment on a show where he says he was right about everything. You literally just said Iran already had the nuke and there wouldn't be a war. And then now there is the war, and you're patting yourself on the back. It's unbelievable this guy is.
Something they're saying they're looking strongly at doing if they will retaliate. So the Trump administration, while on one side of its mouth saying it wants peace, the other side is pushing and stoking this war for AIPAC and others. That's just a fact.
Oh, no shit. No shit. So us lefties were right all along. I was fucking right all along. I said it before, I'll say it again. I'm waiting for my massive stack of apology forms because I was the one sounding the alarm from the beginning that this guy's a fucking warmonger and he's going to get us into more wars. And every time I would list his fucking record, water off a duck's ass. It wouldn't fucking land with anybody. In fact, the dopey, bro-y podcast sphere would feed the myth that, bro, this guy's going to take on the deep state and he's anti-war, bro.
And whereas I support Trump's domestic agenda and the trade agenda and all the other things he's doing, and I've been persecuted, along with many others, for standing for Trump, who I think God wasn't killed at Butler, and I think overall is a great man.
What he's talking about now is the pro-war MAGA people who are now yelling at Alex Jones and calling him a traitor because Alex is like, I don't know about this war with Iran thing. Now they're yelling at him.
He is making the wrong decision on all of this, and he is breaking his promise to the American people to not launch offensive wars. It's true he said no nuclear weapon, but now he is definitely going back on a promise, now pushing regime change. We also have Russia announcing over the weekend and North Korea confirming and others that they are looking to give nuclear weapons to Iran so they have a mutually assured destruction program so this war will end. I don't support the proliferation of nuclear weapons, but that's the reason North Korea hasn't been attacked, is they have nukes and delivery systems. This is escalating out of control. I told people when this all started 10, 11 days ago that it's all about regime change. Netanyahu's like, oh no, it's just about their nuclear sites. 3 days later, yeah, it's about regime change. And you look at the propaganda coming out of the White House, it's AIPAC Israeli propaganda 100%. This is a huge problem for everyone. Oil prices are already exploding. That will increase inflation. That will derail the Trump recovery. You look at the numbers, but it just gets worse from there. Now there's Iranian sleeper cells I told you they talk about are going to hit us any minute. U.S. intel says it could happen. Well, that means the globalists can also stage false flags to legitimize going to full war, even if the Iranians don't activate the sleeper cells that are here with our wide open borders we've had for the last 4 years.
What? Biden deported over 4 million people. He's like, bro, he gave us open borders, bro. Oh my God. Even when he's right, he's wrong. Like that's it. That's who. Even when Alex Jones is right, he's somehow wrong.
So this is so dangerous. Things are only intensifying. Pray for peace and speak up. Let Trump administration know that this is not what we voted for. You also have the war powers being ignored. You've got Massie, saying he's introduced legislation to try to demand that Congress vote. The Democrats are using this to look like they're the peaceniks when they love the Ukraine war and all the rest of it that Trump's rightly been trying to end. AOC's introduced articles of impeachment. This is a disaster spiraling out of control.
Oh my God. So you don't support impeachment? You're admitting he's starting an illegal and offensive war, and it was not approved by Congress, and you sound like you're against the war, but AOC calls for impeachment over it, and what, you're against it? Are you against it? This is what I'm saying, man. This is what I'm saying. There's like 99.9% of them are just so fucking cooked.
Trump's advisors told him not to do this, but he's overridden them listening to Hegseth and General Kurilla, the head of CENTCOM. So that's where we are. I'll be on the air today. Lord willing, on nuclear war. 11 a.m. Central. Harrison Smith, 8 a.m.
So as you could tell, of all the people I showed you, he's one of the stronger voices going. He calls it a mistake. It's not a mistake. They know what they're doing. They are warmongers. They want regime change. That's not a mistake. That's not a oopsie. Tee-hee-hee. A mistake is like, oh shit, I put on the wrong socks this morning. It's not a mistake, okay? But having said that, he's one of the stronger voices against it. Now, why my skepticism? Ladies and gentlemen, here's a video of Alex Jones. Remember in the first term, Donald Trump illegally bombed Syria twice and also admitted, we're going to take the oil, we're going to take the oil. So the U.S. was occupying a third of Syria and stealing their oil. This is under Trump. The night Trump launched his illegal and offensive attack against Syria, here was Alex Jones' reaction.
They're like, if you just turn against Trump, things will be better. But he was doing good, and that's what makes it so bad. And that's what makes it so bad. If he'd have been a piece of crap from the beginning, it wouldn't be so bad. But we made so many sacrifices, and now he's crapping all over us. It makes me sick.
See, this is the problem, right? Even when he illegally bombed Syria multiple times, here's Alex Jones. It's so bad. He betrayed us. He's crapping all over us. Poop, poop face. And then what happened after that, ladies and gentlemen? He got right back on that fucking Trump train like the little sycophantic cuck bitch he is. If you're in MAGA and you want to impress me with how principled you are, in this moment, you completely hop off that Trump train and then you fucking blow it up. Okay? You call for him to be impeached, you call for him to be removed, you call for him to be locked up for war crimes, and you crusade on exposing the fraud all along that was MAGA. It's no more like, I tepidly disagree with this, but I don't know, I'll probably hop back on the Trump train. Fuck you and fuck that. No interest. No interest. And finally, let's end this segment with this one, right? Trump is the peace candidate, bro. No new wars, bro. No new wars, bro. Ready? Now here's what the MAGA idiots are saying.
Precisely. Every dictator in the world is on notice now.
Every dictator in the world is on notice now. So no new wars to, and maybe we'll regime change every dictator in the world. Every dictator. Oh my God. By the way, I got good news for this idiot. The United States militarily supports 73% of the world's dictatorships. So they'll be fine. We won't overthrow them. But the ones we will overthrow are the ones who reject U.S. and Israeli hegemony. Even if it's a more of a democratic system, if you're against U.S. and Israeli hegemony, then these fucking warmonger psychopath imperialists will try to overthrow you, right? Which is why Trump, this entire term, he's been talking about war with Mexico. He's been threatening Canada. He's been saying we're going to steal Panama and Greenland and own Gaza because he is a fucking warmonger, imperialist, bloodthirsty freak. And it's time everybody notices that and doesn't go right back to riding his nuts like all the stuff I just showed you proves. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.